Vamos a comenzar con la segunda parte de la jornada. Y ahora tenemos en la mesa una representación de empresas y universidad. Con nosotros está Ferran Badia, de la Universidad de Lleida y partner del proyecto, que él nos va a hacer de guía de la mesa. Y con ellos, dejadme presentaros que están, por una parte, al lado derecho está Karlos Pereda. Él es representante de Confebasque. Buenos días, egunon. También tenemos a su lado a Eleazar Raya. Eleazar Raya es director comercial del grupo Comansa, si lo digo bien. Egunon. También está junto a él Karlos Balsategui, que viene de Talleres Araz, de Vitoria. Ellos dos son exalumnos de la Escuela de Ingeniería, ellos lo dirán después. Y bueno, yo pienso que los que tienen que hablar son ellos, o sea que os cedo la palabra. Es que ricasco.
Gracias, Edurne. Vamos a empezar esta mesa redonda. Se llama mesa redonda a pesar de que estamos aquí en una mesa alargada enfrente de ustedes, pero siéntanse en una mesa redonda, es decir, cuando empecemos ya con el diálogo, esto queremos que sea un diálogo y por tanto está abierto a todos ustedes para que intervengan en cualquier momento para dirigir preguntas a cualquiera de las personas que estamos aquí. En una transparencia anterior se ha mostrado que este tipo de formación, la formación dual, se basa en una tríada, ¿no?, en donde hemos visto los alumnos, los estudiantes en la parte superior, la academia, la universidad en un extremo y la empresa en el otro. Con eso queremos simbolizar de que esto no es un programa formativo que diseñamos desde la universidad, preparamos, lo tenemos todo ya construido y a posteriori vamos a las empresas a ver si nos pueden coger algunos estudiantes en prácticas, sino que es un diseño, como ha comentado Ishaka en su presentación, integrado. Eso significa que se construye simultáneamente, que se construye conjuntamente entre la universidad y la empresa.
And it is built between the university and the company with some certain goals. As it couldn't be otherwise, we wanted to give a voice to the companies in this presentation. We still have got the students missing in these three columns, but we have really fulfilled this requisite with two representatives of the companies who also were the students of this Machine and Tool Institute, so they can exert both functions. So representatives of company and former students that had this training model, and some of them have grown as a tutor in some cases, so they could also make some comments about his experience as tutors. One of the representatives comes from an entrepreneur confederation, and there are two companies who are sharing this model. I'm going to give them the floor so that each of them makes a small presentation of who they are, which the organization is, so that then you can know who are the people you have got in front of you. I'm going to give the floor to Karlos Pereda, who comes from Confebasque, so that he can start with his intervention. Thank you so much. My name is Karlos Pereda. I represent the Basque Entrepreneurial Confederation, grouping, gathering all the companies in the Basque Country, specifically the ones of Guipúzcoa, which are associated to Adegi, the ones associated in Álava to ASEA, so Álava Entrepreneurs, and the ones in Biscay associated to CEBEC. 25 years ago, by now, the Entrepreneurial Confederation, the Basque Entrepreneurial Confederation, was pioneer in envisaging something that somehow started to be a reason of concern, which was the training of the students of vocational training at that moment from the Basque Country. At that moment, we had another educational academic model, and it was obvious that it didn't really fulfill the needs. It couldn't meet the needs of the companies. It was necessary a bigger practical training of these students. Also, an international dimension was also missed there. And we were talking at that moment with the Education Ministry. At that moment, the minister was Marabal, and the training, the vocational training, was started. That was widespread in whole Spain. So, the one with practices. So that was the origins of a very intense relationship between the training centers and the companies. And of course, in the Basque Country, this is something that we take very seriously. And that was the way of having today a vocational training, a professional training, which is an international reference, has become an international reference. 7 years ago, more or less, we saw that this was not enough. On the other hand, the vocational training with its practices of 400 hours when the course was about to finish was okay, but no doubt about it, the professional dual training that we had seen in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland could be even more interesting for the companies regarding the adaptation of the training to the real needs of the companies. Okay, we started first with the first program called Work and Learn in the Basque Country. The problems were the arrival of the crisis. But 5 years ago, we started with a dual program, a dual training program that was conceived in what we call a Basque model of vocational training. A dual co-education in Germany, or a dual system in Germany, has got certain features. Also, the entrepreneurial tissue or network in Germany is different. In many cases, there are very big companies. Our productive tissue was smaller, and we started to work with the Basque government in the dual vocational training, making a training, designing a training, training the student in specific projects in companies. Nowadays, we have got more or less 1,800 students being trained in the vocational training, but some years ago, we were already missing the fact that the university could also enter into this dual model. We only had one case, and a successful one that had never been known before. That was the university training of this machine and tool institute in alternance, and we said to the government that the model of the IMH was really the model that the other universities should adopt or should be working on. The IMH has been for long years working with this model. They have achieved really to train in an extraordinary way many students, cooperating with the companies in a wonderful way, and the new government really pay attention to this idea. So we have received a strategy university company where the university is going to enter step by step in everything having to do with this dual training.
This has been a presentation about these years in relation with dual education. Later I will go into detail. Now I give the floor to Eleazar Raya from the company Linden to tell us who he is and about his company. My name is Eleazar, which is a peculiar name in this area, but this is my name. I was in the 5th promotion. I also studied traditional engineering. Then I studied vocational training in the MIH. Then I continued in the company where I was. And I want to be brief. So since then, I finished engineering in 2003. And I have worked in 2 other companies since I started in vocational training, assembling machines in a company. And now I'm the commercial director in the company where I'm hired, or in the group where I work, which is Lehman Comansa, that works in building cranes for construction. This area is focused on the metal industry, so I went out of the machine tool industry I moved into the construction or building industry, where I have to combine two commercial teams working at international level. This is a 500 employee companies with plants in Pamplona and China. And in order to assume new challenges in a market, the market of building, which is very weak now in Spain, but I know it's growing in other countries. And later on, I explain my point of view on how engineering studies combined with work have helped me see things from a different angle in order to tap an industry which is new for me, because I was trained for machine tools, for the machine tools industry. And now I give the floor to Karlos Balsategui of Talleres Arats. Welcome, my name is Karlos. I started studying vocational training, then I took 1 year of traditional engineering. I left these studies and I started working, and 2 years later I became a student of the first promotion. We were the pioneers, the creators of all this, which is different to what the engineering that we currently see. At that time we would work in the morning and study in the afternoon in the university. Now things have changed, but at that time there was a promotion for students that have never worked in companies, or in my case it was a promotion from work. What we are using now, not only in engineering but also in vocational training, we see that it is fundamental that we have dual training, so that training is more realistic in relation with the current technology, in addition to what they learn at the schools. But it should be a 50-50. Okay, from now on, feel free to take part if you have any questions. If you have no question, I'll pose my own questions, but we want this to be a dialogue session. So the essential question, the most basic question, is what would be the motivation factors in a company to think of an human resources strategy where they use dual training. There are schools that train engineers. So how do you do it? We used to put an advertisement, a job advertisement. This is one way to do it, one way to get an employee, but there are other companies that start training the students in their companies. What would be your strategy? Well, in our case, we start first, if we have dual education students for vocational training, they stay during 2 months in different departments of the company so that they understand what a company is, how each department works. We are a mechanical fabrication workshop, so they start in the lathe, in the milling machine, and in design. They need to have an overall knowledge, because if they start working fabrication in a milling machine, they say, well, the design is no good. Well, they need to understand how complicated and complex design is, and why this specific design needs some specific tolerances. They don't know this, but if they go through each department, they will get a basic knowledge of how each department works. So in our case, we want them to have basic knowledge, and in our case, for example, we have heard that companies, what they do with dual education is train someone, a specific person, for a specific job, for a specific task. This is not what we do. We provide them with a generic training, not for something specific, so that they make the same part during all the life. So it wouldn't make sense if you devote 1 year and a half, the effort of 1 year and a half in economic and human resources terms, so that eventually what you get is someone that can only do a specific task. While following with your comment about specialization, I think that if we go back in time to the MIH engineering school that was created because there was an interest in the machine tool industry. So several companies got together to create a training center, a certified training center. So maybe, based on what I know about Germany, this was an initiative by the enterprises. They wanted to set up this school and then to certify it. So the enterprises generate the context where a school is created. This school follows parameters that are controlled from the training point of view, and also the companies work as sponsors. So we might get a feeling that dual education generates workers for specific work positions. And based on my experience, I have been assembling machines, both in the design, the mechanical, electrical design. I've been making quotation, visiting clients, and I think that engineering, or at least when I was in school, has given me some knowledge to work as an engineer in any company, but of course within some parameters. Of course, what I mean is chemical engineering. This I cannot do, but for anything that's mechanical engineering, I have the knowledge that I need. And also something that I like to say is that I've received an education of human values that you don't usually get in traditional universities. I have received communication and emotional intelligence courses. These are things that are necessary skills, but you don't see in the university programs. You don't have an exam on these subjects. As for the hyper-specialization, I think this is not the reality. And the enterprises, they know what they need, and they have a mentor for guiding this process. From the multi-purpose point of view, it also depends on what Karlos has said, is that there should be a motivation by the person himself. And also the training in values, I think it's very important. I think we could go into detail later because I think it's very interesting. Well, I think, yes, these are key aspects. Some years ago in Cofebasque, we wanted to do a survey research where we questioned several thousand companies in order to find out what were the needs in terms of employment and training in the Basque entrepreneurial tissue. And this was very useful because 2 years ago it was not clear that there was a lack of professionals, so we worked just like an alarm. But as for the enterprises, what they were telling us, we thought, what do you want from someone that's going to be hired by your company? So the first answer, the most common answer was attitude. When we get this answer, we were surprised. Maybe you mean professionalism. Well, no, it was, I want a nice boy that wants to learn. This is the most important thing for companies. It's amazing. Secondly, they would point out that the student had experience, but if we are dealing with the students, And the third aspect was that they could have some specialization for the specific job that it would carry out in that company. Well, these three elements were the most important ones for companies, can be perfectly met with dual training. Attitude of these young people in a company can be trained in the company with the values of the company and the corporate culture of the company and the way of doing of the company, with dual education and the support of the educational center. Isaka has mentioned this. These are training centers, students and companies. This is the triangle where we are. Experience in dual training. The students, they finish the process with a very good experience. Also specialization. It is true that if we think of the German dual education model, in Munich, in Bad Neuenahr, we were told that someone that's in a dual education in a company ends up in this company and does not leave that company for a long time. But then here in the Basque Country we thought, okay, we're going to develop our own model. We need some skills to be developed. There will be an educational program. In order to get a degree here, you have to go through these levels and through this knowledge. And you have to be trained in these areas. This degree is valid for any company, but you're going to show this and to develop these skills in this specific company. I think this is one of the benefits of our dual model. So the degree is going to be one, it's going to be the same, but we have someone that has trained skills in a specific specialization, but who's capable of doing anything that another student that is not in the dual education can do. And I think this is important, and this is something very good about the Basque model. I would add to this comment that a good thing that I saw when I was a student is that you are studying, and as Eleazar says, you can make many associations. So in our case, we are 28 companies. You are 5 hours at work, but then you are the rest of the time with 28 people that have different problems that you share, and then you learn about other companies. This is also education, but it's not certified. If a peer says, I have this problem, and another one says, well, I had the same problem and what I did was this, or I asked this guy who helped me. This is something you wouldn't learn in the traditional university, and also to have the chance to have a face-to-face is very important. Well, in this sense, nowadays, master degrees in Spain are in fashion. We have 2 business schools that are very important, and what's important there is the networking you get to do there. So if you are studying with people living in the best or in the wealthy districts of Madrid, you will get better job opportunities in the future. Well, if I had to take a master's course, I would think of one of these schools. But what's important, what you learn, is the networking. I have contact with some of my former colleagues, and if I have a problem, I must share it with them. And this is something that was not done in the traditional university. The reach and the scope of the networking that we do in a 28 students in a class is very limited. But this part about sharing issues helps us so that when we get to reality, when we get to the real world, on your day zero of your job, you are a dual engineer and you know what networking is. And if you get someone working with you who's not in the dual education, he wouldn't know anything about it, and you will see him as an extraterrestrial. Because these are very useful skills how to get your way in a company. Well, this about sharing experiences is one of the things that when we've seen the presentation of best practices that we have identified, this is one of the main things that we want to do, that students that are already in companies, that they share this with their peers so that they can grow. When they are in the classroom, they are together with the traditional university students, so they are doing this jointly because this way they can pass on their knowledge to the traditional university peers. You can see the difference between these both types of students. I understand you still have yearly projects, and when someone is presenting a project and he's from dual engineering, he can add many practical and real-world examples to his presentations, something that traditional university students cannot do. I think we have a question in the audience.
I'm from Graz, Austria, and I'm from a program on production engineering. And I want to ask you about one side effect of the networking and how you deal with it in the Basque country. There is a tendency, we have small and medium-sized companies, big companies. Regional companies, maybe low-tech, but very important for labor, high-tech. Well-known companies like BMW is part of or Heineken and so on, with attractive careers. There is a tendency, also through networking. I just take one example. Student at BMW knows the colleague at the small low-tech company is really good, tells him there is a position at BMW, why don't you come to BMW? You have better careers. Through networking also, but also through higher payment, there is a tendency of a drain of the co-op students from the smaller companies to the bigger companies. But we started our program because we wanted to help especially the regional and smaller companies. So how do you do that in the Basque country? That these companies not after a few years say, we quit. We are educating one student after the other, and they end up in the international corporations. What do you do in the Basque country?
We were actually discussing this issue during the coffee break, and also the situation, the current situation. Yesterday, we were discussing how we are in a new phase after the crisis, and we have gone from some years ago, we had to fire very valid professionals, and now we have a lack of well-trained professionals. In the Basque country, networking has always been special and between the vocational training schools. For example, engineering combined with work, and also the owners of the workshops. Many of them had been students that had been in these schools, so this networking is very vivid, especially the geographic characteristics of this region. There are small valleys where everyone knows their neighbors, so where the director of a company and the director of a school center might eat together or have a beer together in one of our villages. And we had a concern that 10 years ago, we were concerned that there would be a fight to get the best professionals between SMEs and big corporations. We knew this, so in Confebasque, what we have designed is a new model of work relations. We have designed a model that some companies are already using, where the fact of having a relationships model in the company and professional career routes help you get the loyalty of the talent, so that you don't lose talent whenever there's another opportunity in a big corporation with higher salaries. Of course, big corporations, they have more resources, they have more money, they have their human resources policies, but it is curious how vocational training centers, for example, in the case of IMH, in education combined with work, I know it is like this, they have become like employment agencies. What should not be their role. Their role is to train, not to be intermediaries. But companies, they call them, and what's logical, the answer is, I'm sending you 7 guys. So we have to distribute this resource equally, because in this geographical area we already have a problem. Because of the growth of the population, there's a lack of interest in our young people for sciences, and this is a problem now. If we increase the GDP in a 3%, this is what we expect for this year, or a 2% next year, there will be a huge need for professionals. This will force companies to adapt to a new profile of young people that we are seeing now, that they come to our companies and they start to be able to choose one company, because we are starting to live a better situation. So things have changed, and young people must adapt, and also companies must adapt. I'd like to add detail. I think that maybe BMV, this attitude of BMV taking away from you the students, from the SMEs, this is not only in Germany. I've seen a comic book of Angela Merkel fishing engineers, Spanish engineers, to take them to Germany. So, as Carlos has said before, that this is about internal, in-house promotion. So maybe I'm not a good example because I've been in 3 companies, but if you're in a company and they give you the opportunity and you want to get more training, they give you the opportunity to get it, you should understand that you are in debt with that company, because they are giving you the opportunity. They are not giving you a higher salary, but you don't want to go to another company because it's something new, or because you just like your boss or your colleagues. I have been in different companies, but that was because I'm not because I'm not an ambitious guy. I like to do things, I'm a curious guy, so I like to change to face new challenges. So I came to this new company because here I have the opportunity to lead 2 commercial teams. I also have the chance to have in my team people from 7 countries. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, but I like it. So I feel in debt with them, with the company that gave me the first opportunity to work and study at the same time. So, if you know a little bit the Basque country, you know it's a very peculiar area. For example, those coming from Germany, they cannot understand that we go out in a group that's like a closed group and with its official members. This is something traditional here, and this can explain how we might feel a stronger bond to the company or to the valley where we work. People still ask me, why have you gone to Pamplona to work? And there's several reasons to explain this, but this is curious, this is peculiar about this area. We have a culture of protecting our environment and respecting our environment, and maybe it's hard to understand for people from other countries. You have mentioned integrated training in values. Karlos also mentioned attitude. In addition to the university taking all this into account and ensuring that our students also develop these skills, to what extent does the enterprise mentor carry out this mentoring work or of ensuring that all these interdisciplinary skills are developed in students? Do you think that the mentor plays a key role in the enterprise in addition to the work of the university with the students? In our case, I believe it is a key role. It has a key role. It brings experience and knowledge. So we always work based on a project that we had in the company. So in our case, if we would not have the figure of the mentor, you could not do it right. But mentors need some guidance as to how should the student be guided so that it can assume the knowledge, so that the training within the company has, let's say, some script, some reference. So in order to do this, we need mentors that should meet with the university to get some guidance, and then some periodical assessments that also help a lot. But of course, mentors are necessary, because without their knowledge and know-how, we wouldn't get good results. Well, I don't have no experience as a mentor and as an in-house mentor, but as an external mentor. So I don't know much about it, as much as Karlos, but the figure of the as a third party, as an external mentor, can help. If he sees some problems, he can bring some ideas on how to solve them, and also he brings a point of view that's not conditioned by the company. And this could add some elements that are very useful. So it's important to have not only a mentor that's outside and that has an objective view. Well, in Confebas, with the training in work centers, I think that was like 20 years ago, we started to work with the trainers in the vocational training centers. And now with this new reality of university dual education, and also with the experience of IMH, we have a new scenario. But the role of what we traditionally call the enterprise trainer is key, because students, they go to the companies to be trained. So this is an employee of the company that must have a very specific profile, because he used to be a regular worker, a normal worker, and then he becomes a trainer, a teacher. So he needs some communication and emotional and attitude skills that are different or special, but also he needs some guidance and some recognition. For some years we have been recognizing enterprise trainers. We have been doing this for some years now, to give them some small awards to the best enterprise trainers in the Basque Country. We think this issue should not only be recognized among the teacher, student, and the boss. This should be recognized within the organization, within the company, and also socially. In addition to this recognition, they also need guidance and training, because they become teachers of these students. So we have invested, or we have made a great effort to train enterprise trainers, and we are currently, with this new dual education, trying to figure out what should be the best way to train these enterprise trainers, what do they need to know, so that they can feel safe with this new role, this new profile.
Hello, good morning. My name is Amaya Ibarra. I am responsible for a master in engineering at the University of the Basque Country of Embedded Systems, and our students make the project in a company, most of them at least. So I had three questions really. In the training in alternance, or the dual one, there is an issue which is very different, which are the pace or the rhythm, the pace. In some countries or in certain centers, people go to the company in the morning, in the afternoon to the university. In the IMH, those are 2 days at the university, 3 in the company. In other places, this is 3 and 3 months. So from the point of view of the company, what do you think about this pace? And which advantages and disadvantages can you see? And the second question is, when you've been talking that the students are rotating, is this common in every company? Are they always rotating? And the third one is something out of curiosity. How is the coexistence in the company between the students and those workers who are working there full-time? Are there frictions or problems? How do they experience this? Okay, I'm going to start. Regarding the timetable, I was the one with this morning and afternoon timetable schedule. I think it's better the one we do now, because in this way, you do not break either the work nor the study, because devoting just 5 hours perhaps really leaves you in between of everything. So I think the best one is the one of 3 days and 2 days. The timetable or the schedule we've got now. The rotation, I know my case. When I was the one to do this, those were very specific departments. For instance, many people from the commercial field. We have got the technical department who were coming from the promotion. In our case, the first promotion were many internal promotions. So those were really already defined. So I cannot be in the reference. He can tell you something else. Leah can tell you something else. And regarding whether people are reluctant, well, I think that it doesn't matter whether the training is dual or whatever. I think that we have got there the clever person who's telling me what I have to do and who is asking me about certain things. I think that we are not going to, we are always going to have this experience, but once you have proven, I was saying when we were having coffee that what we assess most in the companies is the attitude and aptitude, but above all the attitude in the people of the dual training that are in the company now. I tell them that the training is for them, but what they prove in their attitude is going to mean their promotion in the company. So in the end, they are the ones when you are practicing, you go there as if you were watching the work with the hands behind you. The other one is going to tell you, well, this person that is not showing any good attitude, well, what I'm going to say is please replace this one because he's always asking the same. If somebody is asking you for 3 times, how do I have to move this paper? Well, you don't want this person. But if you have a good attitude, everybody admits you. Talking about the topic of these schedules, in my case it was also morning and afternoon too. And I think that the alternance in months really takes you away from reality, perhaps. So it either makes you be immersed in one reality or another. I did the one of morning and afternoon, and sometimes it's a little bit hard, maybe more than the one divided in different days of the week. But this is how everybody gets trained too, so suffering a little bit. Now that we as men do not have to go to the army, well, really this is a little bit of becoming tougher for life. About the topic of rotation, in a very quick statistics, I would say that at least 60-70% of my colleagues are still in the same company. They haven't rotated. And regarding this, the ones who have rotated, I think that half of the 30 are still left because of promotion, and the other ones because the market has made them rotate. But I don't think that with this kind of training in the engineering field, especially if you come from an internal promotion, when you have been suggested by your boss, or you have suggested this to your boss, but both of you agree that it would be good of you to get trained, you receive an hour on a training, you feel really indebted with the company, and the company wants to bet on you. Unless they have been very unlucky with you, or they haven't hit the target, really the rotation, I'd say it is more steady. And regarding the topic of the coexistence, I would make a small comment, because I still remember after so long years that we had this model of engineering where I studied, and we had the other model, the traditional one. And I met a friend that when the time came to work, he saw that I had to go to work, that I kept on working in the same place I had been doing the practices, and I was going to start to work in a new job. When I finished the engineering studies, the company told me, you can choose either this path or this other one. We were talking about it, and the day that I passed, I was with my tutor of the company, presenting the project, having a coffee. He told me on Monday, you will be able to devote yourself to this or to this other thing. We're going to talk. It was very well because I had finished and I had to work. And talking about it with a friend during the weekend, we were in the gym, and he told me, you, Eleazar, don't you think that we are very happy, those of us belonging to the engineering sector, with the things you are doing in Elgoibar? And I thought, my God, I haven't done anything wrong. But sometimes I have met that people are somehow reluctant to accept that our model of engineering is as valid as the other one. And in this sense, with some engineering classmates, I really capture this kind of nuance. And with the rest of the companies, as Carlos has said, if you are the one who always does nothing, well, you're going to be dismissed. But if you are the one who's always making questions and you're questioning everything, and then you take the homework home, you take the homework to school, you improve many projects in the company, and in the third, that they see that you question too much, but you are also doing things, they say, well, this is useful. So the things I tell them are useful too. So in this sense, it is not the same that as an engineer, as traditional engineer, you can come to a company and the first day you contract the engineer, he is going to ask you what is, I don't know, a screw. This has happened to me. All of us know what a screw is. This is not the same to be asked this the very first day as to be
en ese sentido
already integrated.
Cierto estigma que espera.
Already integrated in the company. So we hope that this difference can be solved. Just a simple thing regarding the pace or the rhythm, the one that is adapted better to the company. But it is true that there is an element having to do with the pedagogy and having to do with the fact that the student takes a specific project and can see it as a whole from the very beginning to the very end. And the pupil does not only see parts of the project. This is difficult to match, but I think that pedagogically this is something important. So if a project, a specific project is thought of, and then at the middle of the project I have to go to the center and I can see how things are developed, and then I come back and I see the end and I have missed a very important part that doesn't really match with the things I'm thinking of. The topic of the rotation is something fundamental. Not within the same company, the student can have an overall view to the things the company is doing, and as Carlos has said before, he shouldn't know everything about everything, but he should have a general view, and I think this is very important. And regarding the coexistence, we are people and there's everything, there's all kinds of people. I have seen trainers who meet the children in the morning to go to the company together, who meet the pupils together in the car of the instructor. And the other day we were together at an instructor's course, and we insisted on the fact that the students must also do things. They shouldn't only be behind you looking at things, but let them breathe too, because this is in favor of her learning. So this relationship is something that you have to work on too. We have to all take into account too, if they want, for instance, to pose a period of mobility abroad. If they want to go abroad, they must have an alternance period that is longer. So, for instance, if we are talking about 2 months and 2 months, this is fine, because the student, in this case, can go abroad. Because, for instance, in France, we have got the trade schools, which have got 2 days in the company and 3 days at the school, and have got difficulties to send the students outside, of course. So this is what I wanted to add. Thank you so much. One final question, 2 final questions. Hello, good afternoon. Raquel del Frago, responsible from the Master of Training of Trainers or Teachers. First of all, to thank you for having come here and for having get closer to the university. This is something very important, and this is the first step or the first bridge. And I have 2 questions too, and the other one is relative to the professional people who are working in the company, so the workers of the company. To what extent do you make the selection of those who are going to perform the job of teachers, of instructors, of teachers, of trainers? So whether there is a selection, whether from all those people who are or whether there are people who are there because of their free will, or there are some selection criteria, as you've said before. So you instruct them and you make some kind of courses where you obtain the feedback. But previously, in what way? In what way do you opt or do you choose to say who may do this kind of job, perform this kind of job? And the second question, and perhaps from an academic point of view, is something that really gives us a headache, is the kind of evaluation or assessment. How do you do the evaluation, the assessment of the fact that those competencies have already been achieved at the dual level in this 50-50? So this 50%, how is it assessed? How is it evaluated? I guess it is because of the competencies you work on, but in what way, really? No more than that. Thank you so much. In our case, there is not any training prior to choosing the student. How do you choose the tutor? Depends on the department where the project is going to be developed for the potential engineer, the one showing the best attitude. And of course, you are not going to choose a person who cannot communicate himself, a person with the capacity to establish a dialogue. So the tutor must also have these kind of qualities, because if this person has to be in touch with unknown people and has to be dealing with the tutors of the school, they must have these aptitudes too. And the evaluation at the company was made by each project every semester, and at the end of the course they are presented in front of a jury, and the school provides with 3 different members of the jury. One is from another country, there is an external assessor, and another from the company, from the school, sorry. This was the way of assessing people, of evaluating people. In my case, just to give another nuance, the person in charge of the evaluation or the assessment is going to talk. So here we are, 3 people from the IMH. We are tutors of the working students. So we are tutors at the center. And answering to your questions, how to assess these kind of competencies, what do we usually do? We go to the companies and we help the trainer, we help the instructor of the company to define these competencies in the long run. So we have a horizon of 3 years, 3 years and a half, which are the competencies in the long term, in the long run, that these working students must fulfill. And then we go to a micro level in the short term. Then we define those specific goals, always in relationship with the final goal and being able to identify them. So with traceability, being able to trace them, with milestones in the short term, with goals that can be assessed, and the instructor of the company. This is what we try to teach. How are we going to evaluate within 6 months this working student with a more specific goal? And we can help in this definition. And we go to the next visit and we evaluate, we give a mark, and we define goals for the next 6 months, always without losing sight of this objective in the long run that is defined by the professional profile. So then I understand that the tutors, in this case you, are the ones evaluating. So the teacher does not evaluate. You are the ones evaluating. The teacher at work does not evaluate. Really, in the end, I am a student. I am a student of the 3rd course. I am in Tecnifuelle. I am working as responsible for research and development and also in the commercial department. I have got a tutor in the IMH, who is another one, not HCR, and the tutor, which is the one within the company, which is in charge of guiding us and of saying whether we are fulfilling all those competencies that have been said, as Itziar has said. At the time of evaluating this, in the last meeting I held, what I was asked is that I should give some examples of activities I had performed, for instance, a drawing I had made to show it so that people could confirm I had to do that it could be confirmed that I had to do that. As I am a designer, this was a way of evaluating this, assessing it, and with other kind of competencies it would be like this. Also to say that at a certain moment the tutors in the end, due to my experience, the tutors of companies, at least in the experience I've had, do not receive this training or a skill to be monitoring what we are doing. We have got a lot of support from the people from the IMH and they can help us more, but sometimes when you are choosing the worker you are going to work with, you do not take into account whether these people have got other aptitudes such as being communicative or whatever. Okay, another. Yes, I'm also a tutor of following up in companies in the IMH, and I monitor what people do in the IMH. So just to contribute another point of view, how we do things. These meetings, we always meet the tutor of the IMH, the tutor of the company, the student, who is the one evaluating, obviously, the one who's got the daily activity and knows whether the tutor is the one knowing whether people are working on those competencies on a daily basis, but there we are the tutor of the company, but there we are in order to guide, to certify everything and to rule things a little bit more. Regarding the training that tutors of company receive, what we usually do, specifically with my promotion, this will be in September, we also launch a session where we invite the people to come to the IMH, and a session is made where we meet them, the tutors of the IMH, with the tutors of the company. And obviously we know how tutors are, how busy tutors are in the companies, and not all of them can attend the meetings, but this invitation is always sent, and as far as we can, these things are done. Then also just to give the nuance that when these projects that Karlos have said are performed, everything is not valid. So the project of designing some cardboard and so on, is this project going to fulfill the competencies you have to develop? Because perhaps this is not a real project. So there must be a validation. There is a proposal on behalf of the student, usually validated with his tutor and then the school. So if the school sees, and I agree with the things you've said, I have already lived it. Sometimes not everybody has got all the time they should in order to devote to it, but this is the reality too. And in this sense, if the school doesn't see that what the pupil is presenting is a project, they will tell them this is not a project, and this person will talk with the tutor in order to channel the situation again. So this is the reality too. Two more questions to finish with. Yeah, hello, good morning. My name is Avi Sancho from the Engineering School from Vitoria. As you know, for those of you who are not from here, we are simply 100 kilometers away from San Sebastian. So this year we have implemented a degree in automobile industry in a dual format in order to be able to count on companies of the sector, not only of the province of Álava, but also the whole Basque Country. I would like to thank Isaka and his team, the support we have had, and his help to shape the studies program. And there is a reflection. Are we really bound to go to this dual training? Because in the traditional engineering we've been talking about until now, because 76% of the students have already made voluntary practices with an average of 200 hours. There are more companies than pupils interested in practicing, because people do not want to study engineering. We have already talked about that. So there are two problems I am posing, or two issues. We are starting right now in September. We have already agreed everything with the companies. Which are the recommendations you would make us from your experience at the time of implementing? We have already written down many of the comments you've made. And the second problem that we have detected is a serious one, and this is the one of the women in engineering, in the engineering sector. I think this is a problem in all the engineering schools of whole Spain. 1/3 of the students, of the female students in the last 10 years has plummeted, have disappeared, and I have heard the cases of Mexico, for instance, because we have been thinking of importing engineers, but we do not know what to do to involve girls, the students of the high school, in these topics, because the efforts, although they are oriented to the social work of the engineer at the company and to boost this task with the relationship, for instance, with medicine equipments and so on, but we do not know how to do it. And we do not have enough girls with us, so sorry, thank you. And the last question now. Good morning, I am Genaro Rosado. I belong at the moment to a non-profit organization called SECOT. We are retired people, and we are advising the entrepreneurs, and we develop for the IMH. We've been very lucky to be liked by them, by the IMH, so this is not very difficult either, we think, because they are really very welcoming people. And as a professional, I have been working in the quality sector. First of all, in this Echevarria public company, then in ASMET. Do you know in ASMET, this material technological center? And then after getting retired, I have been so lucky to be the tutor of more or less 50 projects for the IMH, and also to be a judge in the juries of evaluation of these projects. So I have found, as I've said before, I have felt very at ease, but it has been very easy for me too, because they have organized the system of tutors very well. They have got some notebooks, some guidelines, so there is a guide of how to behave, not only regarding the students but also the tutors, so it is quite simple. I can certify that the students I have had passed at the very first time, all of them. So, apart from my good habits or good practices, the whole of the students I have had is really remarkable. I'm not going to say outstanding. Well, some of them were outstanding, but most of them are really remarkable, good students. And if you have any questions, I simply have to express my gratitude to those people for this experience. Thank you very much. And I have to show also my thankfulness to all the participants at this table and to all of you, because really we have run out of time. I hope that this has been interesting for you, and I think that the interest has been awakened, and questions have been really, really interesting, and you have made my task very easy. But some of them are the one we were thinking of posing if nobody among you would ask them, but you have posed them, so everything has been much easier. Thank you so much to Karlos, to Eleazar, and to the rest of the people for their cooperation. As far as the Confederation is concerned, companies, and also the former students of the IMH. Thank you.